friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Ellenvoss, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey everyone, welcome in. Today I'm doing something a little different. I'm bringing you into my studio and processing space to show you what it's like to work with the plants once they're dried. And I thought we could just hang out and chat while I process herbs and just talk about the plants I'm processing from my garden this year and give you tips for maybe things you can use them for as well. So what I have around me, in case you're wondering, I actually just went to a vintage yard sale. I didn't know those existed, but apparently someone decided to have one. It was a yard sale featuring all vintage things. And I picked up this clothes dryer and I repurposed it to use as a drying rack with all of my herb baskets. You might be wondering, oh, what is this piece of paper here? Sometimes when I have herbs that look like other herbs, I write down the name of them in the dry basket. That way, when they dry up and they shrivel and they look like every other green thing, I know what it is. So this is Thai basil. I harvested all of these, I want to say 2 days ago. This one is not ready to be processed yet. It's still wet. You can see it's still limp. It's losing its leaves, but the way that I can tell it's ready to be, preserved or put into a jar for use is that they crinkle. And these are still quite wet. So these are, this is my herb rack. I was going to give you a tour and then I got distracted by the plants. That happens all the time. This is a drying rack and it's a closed drying rack. So if you have one of these at home and you have large baskets, it actually works really well. And then the top rack I used to lay down other herbs. This is all lemon balm I have on the top. So the main thing that you need when you're drying is you need good airflow and you need to make sure that you don't have direct sunlight. So thankfully for me, we don't have direct sunlight. This is facing east, but there's a bunch of trees, so we get kind of filtered light through this space. Over here, this is my teaching kitchen, which I use for doing demos. And I'm going to be doing more of those as I'm getting more courageous with my filming. And I have a table here that I use for a lot of processing. And it also works great as a drying bench. So if you don't have baskets or you don't have drying racks, but you have large flat surfaces, you can use them to dry. So this is goldenrod I harvested last week. Can you hear that? It's crunchy, and that means it is dry. So this, I think I'll process these first because they're ready to go into a jar. And I don't want them to sit out too long. I mean, this is something like I love the aesthetic of herbs everywhere. So I could just honestly live with everything looking like this, and it makes me smile and it makes me happy. But it makes this completely unusable if I wanted to sit. And it also, if the herbs sit out for too long, they're going to lose their potency. And that's not good. Like, that's not good for anyone. It's not good for the herbs. It's not good for me if I want to use the medicine, because the medicine will start to fade as the volatile oils evaporate into the environment. So at some point, you do need to make sure you process and put your herbs away, store them for the season ahead. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start. I have, this is just a wooden teak plate. You could really use any plate. I like to use this one. And then I'm going to take all of the herbs, strip them off into here. And then I have some herb jars that I'm going to put them into. With something like goldenrod that has a stalk, I like to, there's a word for it called garbling. It's kind of cool. And I just go down against the grain. So the leaves naturally grow upward slightly. So I just go against and I strip them off. And I'm going to do the same thing for the smaller stems. And the flowers of goldenrod are used medicinally as well. And when they get really fluffy, I don't like them. If they're still yellow, like when I am harvesting now and they still have that golden yellow and I can smell them. Oh, they smell great. They still have fragrance. Then I'm going to use them medicinally. But once I'll show you some of the ones that have, I actually processed them at the same time, but I think the flowers were too open when I harvested them. So they didn't preserve. They turned into these little white fluff balls, which I don't particularly love drinking as a tea. And I don't really smell very many oils in them when they get to that point. And how did I learn this? Experience. I didn't read that in a book. But when you do this long enough and you season by season harvest things and then you use them throughout the year, you get to know, what are the medicines, at what point are the medicines at their best, and at what point are the medicines, unfortunately, have they gone too far? And sometimes you do, I'll probably take these flowers from the old gold, the puffed out goldenrod, and I'll just throw them back in the woods. So that's, there's nothing wrong with giving the plants back to nature. And, one mistake I made early on, can you hear that? Whoosh. One mistake I made early on as an herbalist is I would harvest too much. I guess I would just think like, oh, it's ready. Look there's like thousands of plants. So let me take a bunch and then I'll keep it. And I forgot that in reality, the best way to use herbs is seasonally. So really, all I need, or I should say kind of yearly, all I really need of goldenrod is enough to get me through the fall and the winter and the spring. And it's not an herb I use that much. It is good for seasonal allergies, so I'll probably start using it in my nettles blend coming up in the next few weeks, especially as the mold and leaf mold allergens start to come up. This little thing I'll just leave over here. And then I'll use it also through the winter. It's really good. I really like to use it as an herb for cold and flus, especially when you have catarrh, which is an old Latin word for mucus. So if you have a lot of mucus, and I know in our family, we have young kids who are in school and they get sick and they get colds and they are sniffly and boogery. And I'm always looking for ways to help dry up their congestion so that they can go to school and not be like, looking like dirty, gross kids. I mean, I know it's just being sick. But there's a point at which you're like, it's time for this to dry up. And so goldenrod is one that can be really helpful for drying up nasal catarrh or mucus. It's also one that I use just in like regular cold. It's a little diuretic, so it's kind of gently cleansing for the kidneys of the body. And so it's just a nice one to throw in. Like if you do have a cold or you do have allergies, if you have like life happening to you, if you're living, it's never a bad idea to use gentle herbs to kind of help flush your system out. So something like goldenrod, which I find to be very, very gentle. Look how tall this one is. Wow. So let's do this one in half. I'm going to go down to this point. And I think it's never a bad idea to include some gentle alternative or diuretics in your daily blends. So this is a really nice one for kidney support and keeping the kidneys functioning well. So I'm trying to think, what else do I use goldenrod for? I think those are kind of my main things. Oh, there is a use for goldenrod it was mentioned, I think I learned this from Matthew Wood. I'm not sure where he got this from, but he said that it's really good for when relationships are out of balance. I think it might be adapted from some of Nicholas Culpeper's work, who was a medical astrologer in like the 1670s, or was it the 1760s? No, I think it was the late 1600s. And he associated goldenrod with the zodiac sign of Libra because it does work on the kidneys. And the kidneys are seen as being ruled by Libra, and they regulate fluid balance. And there's two of them, and they kind of look like, they're in a pair like the scales. So Matthew talked about it's one of its like kind of more, I don't want to say magical uses, but you could say like, yeah, one of its more spirit uses is for when relationships go out of balance. And I had one client who was struggling. She was a Scorpio and her boyfriend was a Scorpio. And there were just a lot of power struggles in their relationship. They both didn't feel like, I don't know, there was just a lot of maybe unclarity in their relationship about like how serious it was. And one person felt like they had more power and the other one felt like they were being taken advantage of in some way. And so the one who came to me, because I knew who both of them were, because they were at my yoga studio. So I gave her goldenrod as a tincture. And I just said, let's just see if this herb can help your body figure out how to be in right relationship with him, right? Because there's something about goldenrod that's like a torch, I mean, you look at it and it kind of looks like you could light it on fire and it would lead the way through the darkness, kind of like mullein has that too. But it's something that can create clarity in our mind. So I said to her, try this herb. It's specific for when there's power dynamic issues within a relationship, and especially romantic relationships. Agrimony is a little bit more for like work relationships or like tenant, like a tenant and person who's living in the house, or tenant and landlord dynamic. But for romantic, which is more Venus and more Libra related, I said, let's try this. So she took it as a tincture, and it was probably within about a month and a half. She said that she had gotten a lot of clarity around her relationship and they broke it off. She decided actually, which was unlike her because, she really was kind of paralyzed, didn't know what choice to make, which is very common for that Libran energy. I don't know. I've had lots of Libran friends who have a really hard time making decisions. And she was having a really hard time making a decision. And she said that the goldenrod really helped her feel like kind of like she had fortitude and like an upright pillar of strength supporting her. And she was able to see that this relationship was not healthy for her. And so she left. I thought that was pretty neat. Okay, so now I've got goldenrod, a lot of it. Some of it ended up on the floor. Let me just kind of show you. So I got the leaves. These are the flowers. These ones look pretty good. They're still yellow. Let me show you the ones that I don't love. So I don't know if you can see the difference here, but these ones are really white and fuzzy. And I don't love that because I feel like when they get to this point, as I mentioned, they don't strain very well and they don't have much taste. So I'm just looking at this and I'm seeing how it's brown here. Do you see that? I don't want those leaves because I've got such beautiful leaves, and actually I can even pick out these brown ones. Just throw them on the floor. We'll sweep that up later. I'm going to really take the ones that look like they're alive and that they are going to give good medicine. And I don't feel bad about giving the plants back to the earth. And it's part of the natural cycle. Obviously, I don't harvest so much and throw so much back that it, is taken away from the pollinators and the bees, because the bees love goldenrod. So I just took enough where I think, this is going to be enough for me. If I have some family and friends who are struggling this winter, or, sometimes it's nice just to have a little bit of extra herbs on hand to make a tea batch and drop it off if someone has a cold. It used to be such a thing where, if someone was sick, people in the community would stop by and bring soup or bake some bread or bring a pot dish, is what they call it in Minnesota, or like a hot meal, like a casserole. And I would love to see that come back. I remember when I had my first daughter, one of my friends who had already had a daughter organized a meal train for me. And if any of you have friends that are pregnant, do this for them. Or if you're pregnant, ask your friend to do this. And there are online places that organize it for you where it's just a sign up. So there was this meal train sign up, And every day somebody would stop by and drop off a soup or a dish. And when I was recovering from, I had a really challenging childbirth in my first one. It was so nice to have fresh meals and to not have to worry about cooking. And also just there's something about receiving food from from friends and from family that I think makes it even more nourishing than something you can just stick in the microwave, obviously, or even cooking something yourself if you're really depleted. Having someone who cares for you, prepare food for you, I think adds to the medicine of the food itself. So I was just thinking that, for example, all of this goldenrod, I could use to drop off at a friend's house if they have a cold and just mix it with maybe, what would I mix it with? So if I had a friend who had a cold, here's what I would do. I would take some of this, and I don't like it, even though it's so pretty in these full leaves, when I'm going to process it and put it in a jar, I like to crush it up because that makes the surface area open up. So when I put it into water, it's going to be easier for the water to get into the plant material, and it will make a stronger medicine. Even though the water will kind of penetrate this leaf, it's not going to extract it. I actually have to break the cell walls of the plant open. When they're dry, it's easy. You just snap it. And now I have open cell walls, and everything that's pocketed inside of those cells and in the interstitial spaces is going to come out into water. Super easy. So what I would do is I'm going to crush this up. So I would take probably like maybe, let's just say I had, this is about a 2 cups or 500 milliliter jar. I would probably do maybe about a cup or a handful of goldenrod. And then I would do maybe let's just do handfuls. I would do like a handful of crushed up goldenrod, a handful of elder flowers, which are really good for fevers, colds. They're also anti-catarrhal. They're sweet and they're nourishing too. And they're a little bit pungent. So they have a little bit of volatile oils that kind of break up the mucus as well. I do maybe like half a handful of peppermint or whatever mint I have. Right now, I don't have it here, but it's over there. I've got spearmint from my grandmother's garden. So I probably do like a half a handful of spearmint leaves. And then because I would make sure my friend doesn't have high blood pressure, and then I would add just a pinch of licorice. I love licorice as a herbal medicine. It really brings a formula together, and it tastes good and it sweetens everything. And then I'd probably add some other aromatics that would be really nice for opening up the sinus cavities, maybe some dried ginger root or some cinnamon. What else could I use? I have the mint in here. I think that might even be fine. Maybe I could add in some rose hips for vitamin C. That might be really nice. Or I could add in some dried elderberries for vitamin C and support. And then I would just mix that together, put it in a cute little mason jar, which, can you believe it? I'm almost out of mason jars. I need to go to the thrift store and get more. So I would put that in a mason jar, cut out a little cloth lid, put it over it, and then tie it with some twine. And it would look so cute. And then I would make a nice label with everything that's in it and instructions for how to use it. So that's what I would do. So if you're a friend of mine and you live nearby, I'll drop it off. Just let me know. I'm going to get my jar. I'll be right back. Okay, so this jar, you can use any jar to store your herbs. I usually just use mason jars or washed out, you know, spaghetti sauce jars. These are kind of fancy jars from Italy. They're really cute, and I like the little seal they have. So what I'm going to do now is just crush up the herbs, and I've never done this on my lap before. So I'm going to just crush them up and try to get them into the jar. It's really satisfying to do this. I know it's not convenient. A lot of us really think to ourselves, I don't have time to go out and gather herbs and then dry them and then do all of this. But, it's weird because we have time for other things that don't actually do really anything deeply nourishing for ourselves. How do we have time for all of these other things, but we don't have time to actually do the things that bring us great joy and satisfaction and that give us medicine. So I would just encourage you that there is always enough time. You can find pockets of time. And I hope this, I know my microphone is very sensitive, so you might be hearing lots of crushing. Hopefully you're finding it to be a relaxing and enjoyable sound. I do. I find all of this to be very relaxing and very enjoyable. Now, I'm not trying to get every single piece perfect. There's no perfect in herbalism. I don't think so. You know, I mean, nature is full of variations and adaptations. And I think in herbal medicine, you know, just like nature, we're trying to do the best we can. And, you know, based on a few things, like one is our temperament. How patient are we? And we're kind of born, I think, with a temperament that is either maybe very slow and very earthy and very patient. And some of us have temperaments that are more airy and less patient and a little more easily distracted. Some of us have more fiery temperaments, which are definitely not conducive to patience. They're more conducive for getting things done. So I guess maybe for a lot of people with a lot of fire, isn't that beautiful? Look at this. They might find this to be very satisfying because there's a definable result at the end. You know, at the end of this, you have something to show for your work, which I love. And again, I think for all of us that are aspiring to be closer to nature, to live a life that is closer to the natural world, and maybe we're trying to live in the rhythms of nature, doing something like this and just maybe picking, you know, maybe for you, you don't have time to do this with all of the herbs that you grow or all of the herbs you wildcraft, you know, but maybe you just pick during harvest season 3. And maybe you just think about for yourself, what are the top 3 herbs you're going to use the most over the winter? And I think probably the top 3 herbs that I use the most, I use tons of peppermint. It's just all around a wonderful herb for digestion, for colds, for fevers, for after you eat a meal. Peppermint is really good at helping you with sugar cravings, like dessert cravings after meals. Peppermint is also very uplifting. It's really good before you study or before you take a test, or if you're just sitting down to get a lot of work done. I know a lot of us work from home these days. So having a cup of peppermint tea is just a really, really nice, it's nice year round. So that might be one that you invest in. If you're thinking about herbs to grow next year, if you don't already grow it, that would be one I would recommend. Goldenrod grows most places throughout North America. So that might be another one that you consider harvesting and processing like I've done today. And the other ones that I use, probably you wouldn't use as much. I use a lot of Monarda fistulosa bee balm. It's also really good for coughs and colds and gosh, burns, and it's a nervous system remedy. The ones I think the other one that I would recommend everyone grow and process is chamomile. And I don't have any drying right now because that was earlier in the spring and the early summer, but I probably have like 3 jars of chamomile and they'll all get used probably by midwinter. So I hope this was helpful, maybe interesting, maybe relaxing to see herbs in action getting processed. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about anything I mentioned, if you'd like to see more videos like this with me processing herbs and talking about them, please just write it in the comment section. If there's other things you'd like to see me do. Again, I'm like trying to get more courageous with this channel to try to show you more elements and dynamic parts of being an herbalist. So let me know what it is you'd like to see. And I look forward to seeing you again. And if you haven't subscribed, I didn't say this, please click the subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers by the end of this year. I'm at 7.5 as of this moment of recording. So please subscribe. It does help me and it helps more people find my work. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good one.